Welcome to Behind Enemy Line Sports with Brandon Matthews. It's been a while. Just been super busy. Started college again, and just kind of screwed everything up. But I'm here. I've got an episode. We've got news. But first, I'm going to remind you to follow me on Instagram, Behind Enemy Line Sports, and Twitter at BRANM2012. And my YouTube channel, which you can find additional content alongside with the podcast content at Behind Enemy Line Sports. So, with all that out of the way, let's just jump right into it. We had UFC Apex or UFC Vegas 35 this last weekend. It was Giga Chikadze versus Edson Barboza. And boy, was this a good ass card. This pretty much, I feel like from start to finish, it was pretty entertaining. I don't think I'll start right at the very, very bottom, even though the fights were pretty good in the undercard. I think I'll start. Oh man, I'm looking at the UFC's breakdown of this, not ESPN, so trying to figure out where the main card begins and where it ends. Okay, either way, let's go. Let's just start at Gerald Meerschaert. Actually, you know, screw. Let's start at the top. F it. Giga Chikadze versus Edson Barboza. Giga Chikadze won via TKO in the third round at 1 minute and 44 seconds remaining in the fight. You know, going into this card, I heard so many people talk about Edson Barboza, and trust me, I know Edson Barboza. I know how good he is. But it was strange because maybe it's because people feel Giga's not tested. I mean, I feel like now he pretty much is. But I was listening to these commentaries about Edson Barboza versus Giga, and I was just like, wow, it's like no one's seen Giga fight before. I understand he's got this amazing liver kick that he's apparently trained over the years, going back to his kickboxing days. And that seemed like what everyone was hung up on, but not necessarily how good is he on his feet with his striking, how quick he is, and everything. Going into this fight, I felt like I was one. I don't want to say I was the only one, because obviously I wasn't. But I feel like I chose Giga when most people were choosing Edson. And I was right. I was correct. Giga won. The fight stayed up pretty much the entire time. I don't think there was really any time where it ended up on the ground. I'll probably check that out to make sure. But anyways, from a striking standpoint, man, Giga Chikadze is fast. He's fast at punching. He's fast at kicking. So is Edson Barboza. But once it got into the third round, it was very clear that Giga was going to do whatever the hell he wanted, especially towards the end there. I mean, he rocked. Oh, man, I don't even remember how he rocked Edson. But, yeah, he ended up rocking Edson a few times in that third round. Just, you know, he didn't want to go down. Then eventually the ref ended up having to stop the fight. But, man, I don't know what else to say. It just, Edson was, or not Edson, but Giga just looked amazing. Oh, no. What am I doing? Now, where do I see, so this fight took place in the... See, this is why I need the ESPN. The UFC one's nice and all, but it doesn't have the full-on breakdown like the UFC does. Or at least the UFC one that I got off their website has fewer details than the ESPN version. Here we go. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, featherweight. Oh, wow. So what do I see going on next? Giga fighting at featherweight, so that's the same weight class, I believe, as... Excuse me for not being prepared. Just trying to make sure I get the right names here. So athlete rankings for featherweights, because I'm dumb. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Alexander Volkanovski. Okay, now we got a little more. So Giga actually moved up 2 spots from where he was at previously. He was at number 10. Who do I want to see him fight, man? He should probably. I know he. Oh, he called out. Oh man, why am I blanking? Max Holloway. And man, that would be such an awesome fight. I guess Max Holloway had been saying something about Giga, and so he wasn't very happy. Giga wasn't very happy about it. So he called Max Holloway out after his fight, pretty much. And I think that would be awesome because Max Holloway's last fight against Calvin Kattar, man, he showed that his striking is like completely above anyone else. Like, to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen someone, even Sean's fight against Chris Montinho. He like, this was a different level of boxing Max Holloway had. I know I referenced Sugar, but whatever. It's because Sugar just basically peppered his guy and just kept punching him. Max, he looked like the most skilled boxer I've ever seen, at least in the UFC. So him fighting I don't want to say master kickboxer, but practically a master kickboxer in Giga, that would be a pretty interesting matchup because Giga showed that he actually has some good boxing skills in this last fight against Edson Barboza, and I think that'd be a good one. But I kept hearing, I don't know, because of where he's at on the list, number 8, he would end up fighting Max Holloway, who's number 1. I think he probably ends up fighting one other person before Max Holloway, but who would that be? I mean, I want to say Calvin Kattar, but man, I think if the UFC matched Calvin Kattar versus Giga, I think they'd be doing Calvin pretty dirty just because I don't see Calvin Kattar winning that fight based on his last fight with Max Holloway. I think Giga Chikadze has better, like, unless Calvin Kattar can defend kicks pretty well, check kicks, really check that liver kick. That would be probably, I mean, Calvin Kattar would probably just get smashed, to be honest. And speaking of the liver kick, in the Edson fight, and this is dragging on longer than I wanted to, but in the Edson fight, you could tell that Edson Barboza practiced blocking that liver kick a lot. There were a few moments, or more than a few moments, where Giga fainted with punches and even some kicks to the head, where you had Edson immediately covered to that side, and you could tell he really was concerned about that kick. But yeah, it didn't help. I mean, Giga did end up finding it once, I believe. He just kind of tickled it a little bit, which was enough to make Edson kind of back up. We also had some Ultimate Fighter fights on here. The finales for the middleweight and the I believe this is flyweight. No, bantamweight. So we had Bryan Battle versus Gilbert Urbina, the guy who had 2 brothers previously on the Ultimate Fighter, and unfortunately it wasn't third time is the charm because Bryan Battle ended up beating Gilbert Urbina. To be honest, I mean, the Ultimate Fighter fights were nice. I actually liked the Ricky Turcios versus Brady Hiestand fight more than the Bryan Battle and Gilbert Urbina fight. So much so that I kind of checked out of this fight, to be honest. I was watching it, and I just kind of got bored. And, I mean, Bryan Battle looked good, but surprisingly, Gilbert looked good as well. I mean, from a striking perspective, both guys looked really, really good striking. I mean, it just wasn't very thrilling. I just didn't find myself too thrilled by this fight. It ended a rear naked choke, Bryan Battle, round 2 at 2:15. And that was all she wrote. So I guess Bryan Battle gets a contract for the UFC, and we'll see who ends up fighting next in the middleweight division. Ricky Turcios versus Brady Hiestand was a good ass fight. Ricky has crazy output. Dude threw so many punches, landed so many punches. And Brady, I mean, he's clearly an amazing wrestler. And that was one thing about this fight that was fun to watch, is the scrambling around on the ground and, just them trying to get out. Brady ended up having a lot of ground control throughout the fight, but unfortunately just really didn't do too much with it. Like, he could get Ricky to the ground, but Ricky was good at kind of scrambling out of these positions and getting back to his feet, where he proceeded to just win on the feet against Brady. I did see some people saying that it was kind of an iffy decision. I think it's based off of the takedowns, because Brady did have 6 takedowns to Ricky's 2. But Ricky also threw and landed over 200 significant strikes. No, I'm sorry, total strikes over the fight. So I don't know. I mean, the it was probably more of a toss up if I had to say, if we were gonna try to consider it as the entirety with the takedowns and everything. I think just from a basic viewer's perspective, you would say Ricky won just because he landed a lot of good punches, a lot of punches and stuff. So that's where that's at. Before that, though, we had Kevin Lee versus Daniel Rodriguez. This was a sleeper fight, man. I feel like so many people were not talking about this fight, except for, some of the more, I don't want to say hardcore guys, but just some of the more people more in depth with the sport, understand it a bit more, I guess, and the people involved. But this was exciting. Like, Daniel Rodriguez took this fight on short notice and, made weight and everything and just looked like the way better fighter than Kevin Lee. I would say Kevin Lee looked all right in the first round, but after that, nah. Daniel Rodriguez's boxing was way too good for Kevin Lee. And Kevin Lee, I mean, he tried to take Daniel Rodriguez down, and he did manage to get him down several times, or a few times. But he just couldn't keep him there for very long. He had a total of 3.5 minutes control time, so he didn't even, yeah. But he took him down 3 times. But Daniel Rodriguez just had much better striking, and his boxing was much better. And definitely by that last round, Kevin Lee was tired as hell, you could tell. And I believe, I believe Daniel might have even rocked Kevin Lee at one point, and then Kevin just, instinctually went to his wrestling and shot for Daniel Rodriguez's legs and saved himself in that situation. But overall, it was very obvious that Daniel Rodriguez was going to win this fight once it got closer to the end of it. I didn't hear the post-fight interviews, or at least the post-fight press conference, because I swear I saw something about Dana White had mentioned he's not sure what's going on with Kevin Lee at this point. But, man, everyone talks about how Kevin Lee has all this potential and he just, he's a natural athlete and blah, blah, blah. But there's just something there that, clearly is not working for him. I mean, maybe he entered the sport too late. Maybe his, I don't want to say dedication to the sport, but maybe the mentality he has around training and everything, maybe it's just not working out. It's not clicking. Because you look at his record and his resume is pretty damn good. Like on paper, not considering the people he fought, but when you look at the win-loss ratios, it's pretty dang good. And then you look at the record, he has a few losses sprinkled here and there prior to 2017. But then once 2017 hit, he has, a loss, a win, and then a back-to-back loss, a win, and then a back-to-back loss again. But in his losses, he just doesn't look very good. And when you look at the names he's losing to, Daniel Rodriguez, Charles Oliveira, Rafael Dos Anjos, Alain Quinta, and he lost to Tony Ferguson in 2017. These are like the top 10 guys in the division. I guess now Daniel Rodriguez is. And, he probably belongs up there anyways. But you look at these names, and it's obvious he mustn't be able to hang with the top 10, top 5, top 10. So I think as far as Kevin Lee's concerned, I don't want to see him out of the UFC. I tune into his fights. I think he's an entertaining fighter at times. It's just obviously against tougher competition, he doesn't seem to perform very well. And maybe that's just his ceiling. Maybe he's reached it at this point with the amount of training he's done. Okay. Andre Petroski versus Micheal Gillmore. This was also another Ultimate Fighter fight in the middleweight division. Andre Petroski won. But I do remember this fight very, I don't want to say vividly because that would be a lie. This brain doesn't remember anything vividly. Psych. But Andre won, and I remember when I was watching this fight thinking, man, this Micheal guy, because going into the fight, I will be honest, I wasn't keeping up with the Ultimate Fighter. I think I was like 2 episodes behind, from the final fights here. And I had no idea Micheal was going to be fighting in this final until the day of this fight. But after seeing how he fought in his first fight in the Ultimate Fighter, I was like, oh, damn, Andre's got this in the bag. This would be super easy for him. But no, Micheal actually put up a decent fight. I mean, he didn't look awesome, I guess, but he actually he had some good shots against Andre. And I was even surprised because looking at Micheal, I'm not saying he doesn't look like an intimidating dude or anything. And I guess that doesn't matter, but comparing him to Andre, you'd be like, this guy's fighting. I don't know what a good comparison would be to him to an everyday person, but he's fighting a guy who works out 5 days a week. And it's just, I don't know. I was actually just a little surprised that Micheal was actually able to stand with him a little bit. I mean, like I said, he didn't look super impressive. Once it got to the ground, Micheal Gillmore was not. That was not his wheelhouse. That is for sure. And Andre, I mean, on the feet, he's all right. I think he needs to improve his stand-up because clearly his ground game is where his strongest suit is at, or where he's strongest at. But good for Andre. Looks like he's won the Ultimate Fighter for the middleweight division. As far as who he fights, I don't know. Makhmud Muradov versus Gerald Meerschaert. Okay. This fight was funny to me because if you know who Gerald Meerschaert is, he lost to Hamzat last year in one punch. But he went on to win his next fight, and then he went on to win this fight. And boy, if I tell you what, this Muradov, I thought he was going to win because he came out looking awesome. His striking looked better. He was all over Gerald Meerschaert. I mean, he wasn't going crazy or anything, but his shots were much nicer. But as the fight started to go on a little bit more, also this ended of the second round with minute 59. The longer this went on, Gerald seemed to find his groove, and once he really started getting into it, then the punches really started connecting. And Gerald just took off from there, and there weren't that many strikes landed in this fight. And there was practically zero ground game. So it all took place on standing, and Gerald just beat Muradov. He rocked him and ended up taking the back and finishing the fight with a rear naked choke. And I don't think I said the ending of the previous fights. You had KO TKO for Andre, submission, no, UD for Daniel Rodriguez, Ricky Turcios was a decision, and Bryan Battle was submission. I think I said that anyways. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised Gerald did what he did. I mean, this Muradov dude, I actually have never heard of him, but I think he's actually a decent fighter. But Gerald Meerschaert, he's a vet, so I mean, this guy's probably got some. He's definitely got some professional experience. But Gerald just knew how to put it together as it went on. I'm not gonna go super deep into this card. There were maybe a few notable things that happened in this card. You had Sam Alvey, who lost, who was super pissed about it, even though he clearly was losing. I think he expected to win based off of the last round where 2 points got taken away from his opponent, Wellington Turman. But the dude was pissed, and I was like, dude, you were on track to lose this fight anyways, and you're pissed off because the other guy lost 2 points and you thought you were going to win because of that? You practically don't deserve to win at that point. So I think the right person won in that fight. Granted, Sam got poked in the eye once, and one other time it didn't seem very significant. He just kind of played it up a little bit. So, whatever. Damn, there's a minute left on this recording before I have to start again, so I might as well do it now. Catch you on this side. The other notable one was the Jamal Emmers versus Pat Sabatini. Man, Jamal Emmers got caught in I believe it was a heel hook. Or no. Is that right? There's a toe hold. Yeah, a heel hook. And basically had his entire knee just explode, I guess. I mean, the Pat and Jamal Emmers in this fight ended in the first round with 1:53 left. Jamal Emmers looked decent on the feet to begin with. I mean, he threw way more strikes too. But it ended up going to the ground where this fight ultimately ended with Pat getting the heel hook. But the way the sequence happened was you had Jamal Emmers basically standing over Pat Sabatini. Sabatini grabbed his leg and immediately started going to try and roll into that heel hook. I believe it was Jamal standing over him, or he had like his leg, holding his leg. But either way, Jamal was in a position where his foot was in a heel hook position. He was holding a toe hold, and he was really trying to crank on that, but it just wasn't doing anything. It's not going to submit this guy, especially because Pat had him in a heel hook. And yeah, it was just interesting to see, and there was some context I was provided watching Michael Bisping talk about it. But yeah, he was trying to get that heel hook submission, or I mean that toe hold submission, and then all of a sudden you see him yell, and that's it. The fight ended. Now, according to Michael Bisping, or no, I think it was Michael Bisping, yeah, he was talking about the heel hook and saying that when it comes to that submission, you don't necessarily feel it's when you're in the position, when the person starts cranking, you don't feel much pain or you don't feel anything really. When you do feel pain, it's already too late. It's basically what he made it sound like. Once you feel pain, your knee's already messed up. So that's a very shitty submission to get caught in and to not tap to. So it sucks for Jamal Emmers. I hope he didn't, basically destroy his knee, because that's significant, especially in his career, his profession. That's it for the fights. That at least the ones that I want to talk about. This coming week we have Darren Till versus Derek Brunson. Stupid excited for that fight. I'm super looking forward to that. So I don't know if I'll do I may do a picks. I might end up doing that as a YouTube video. Just because if I'm going to do it, it's probably just going to be that. It's not going to be a podcast. That will come later, more than likely Thursday or Friday. But for the time being, we also had one other event take place this last weekend. It was also a fighting event. The Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley event. Now, I watched only one of the boxing matches, and that was the one prior to their fight. And it was entertaining. It went to a decision. But I can't say I was too invested in the fights prior to that. I was more so curious about Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul. Ultimately, Jake Paul won. I don't think there was any question at the end of the fight how the fight went and who was going to win. Tyron Woodley did exactly what he does in his MMA fights, at least with recent history. Basically, he puts himself in a position where he starts from behind. He doesn't throw anything. So, I mean, I don't know. I think Tyron Woodley thought he won this fight, but nah. I don't know why he thinks these things, because it was very obvious. And also, the funny thing is everyone has a conspiracy theory that this was rigged. No. They say they call to the moment where Tyron actually landed a really good right hand on Jake and rocked him into the ropes. And people are like, why didn't you pounce on him? Obviously, it's rigged. Man, Tyron Woodley don't know shit. Like, the dude, I don't want to say he doesn't know anything. That's too much. But the guy just doesn't go forward. Like, it's like he's scared now. So he rocked Jake, but then he stood there. And I understand, like, when you rock a guy, you don't just go crazy. I mean, some people do. But level-headed fighters, or at least fighters that have more experience, understand that you don't just go all in and basically blow your load on trying to knock the guy out, because you never know. You might miss, 80% of the punches you throw, and next thing you know, you're punched out, and the guy is recovered, and you're tired, and they're a little more rested. So I think maybe that's what Tyron Woodley was doing. But as Jake started circling the ring, it's not like he really threw many more punches after that. And that happened in like the third round or something. No. It was either the second to last or the third to last round that this happened. And Tyron his output slowed down quite a bit. I was hoping that would actually increase his output, because he did have a moment, I believe, in the second round where it seemed like he got some confidence and he started throwing his hands. And I was like, okay, this might be a little different. No, we got the same old Tyron Woodley that we got the previous years. And, of course, immediately Tyron Woodley wants to run it back. Jake is telling him that he needs to get it, the tattoo. in order for them to run it back, and then Jake retired today and then retired today, so it's like I don't know, it's all show business. Do they fight again? I don't see why they would. I don't see how it benefits Jake Paul at all, really. It's not like it was a close... Well, it was kind of close. It was kind of a closer fight than his previous ones, that's for sure. But it wasn't so close that by the end I was trying to figure out in my head who do I think won this fight. I clearly could tell Jake had won. Now, I did see someone throw out a good name that I think Jake Paul should consider if he wants to lose. But Anderson Silva, why not? He just beat the son of a world famous boxer. I mean, why not fight Anderson Silva? I mean, he still got it. Show those boxing skills against Anderson Silva and see how far it gets you. I'm just kidding. I mean, this whole Jake Paul fighting MMA fighters is honestly kind of fun. It gets people up. It gets people interested. And I think, I heard someone say this about what Jake is doing right now, which is totally beneficial, I think, mutually for everybody. And he's getting more eyes on boxing and MMA through his young fan base. And all that serves to do is just grow the sport. So I ain't tripping about it too much like some of the other people are. I think they need to chill. I think Jake's just having fun. I think he's becoming a multimillionaire because of it. He's also helping other people become multimillionaires because of it. So what's the problem? Let the guy do what he wants to do. Although I do believe it would be fun to see him get rocked by a legitimate fighter. I'm not saying he needs to get into the octagon because I think even Jake understands and his brother understands that's a completely different environment. At least in boxing, it's a little more controlled. There's not as many variables as far as like ground game and all that stuff. So, good on Jake. Good on Tyron, Woodley. But I hope Jake fights the next level of competition after this. Although I do have a one wish that comes to my mind. I do hope that Jake Paul ends up fighting Dylan Danis. Because that guy's annoying as hell. And if I was going to say, if there's anyone that I'd rather see, or I should say, if I watch a Jake Paul fight and I don't dislike Jake in that fight, then it's going to be Dylan Danis. Because I don't like Dylan Danis more than I dislike Jake Paul for some reason. I just think the guy is a loser. I say a loser. I'm not saying like I'm richer than him or any of this bullshit. I think he's got a fake ass clout following. He's become famous from hanging out with Conor McGregor and being associated with him. The guy barely has any professional fights, but yet he's got this massive following for some reason. And he seems to get people riled up so easily. And the guy likes to make all these claims about how good of a fighter he is, but he never shows anybody how good of a fighter he is. So maybe Jake Paul and this idiot will end up fighting, and that would be an awesome. I'd tune in for that. I might actually pay for that, because I didn't pay for this. Okay, that's a lie. I was sent a link by someone. It may or may not have been paid. I just happened to be able to watch it. Alright, so there is some NFL news. So, man. Now I'm looking up this article because I want to make sure I get the person's name right. So, this person with Yahoo Sports. Damn, I can't remember his name. Damn. Okay. Anyways, I'll have to include it in the video probably. I don't know. They won't be able to see it on the podcast, but so it was reported this last weekend that there were there's one team still in the running to get Deshaun Watson, and that was the Miami Dolphins. It was reported that the Texans are seeking 3 first-round draft picks and 2 second-round selections. But what's holding up the transaction is Miami very wisely wants stipulations. They want to make sure that if they get Deshaun Watson with all this capital that they'd send Houston, that they end up not screwing themselves over if Deshaun Watson ends up getting in trouble for the allegations that are levied against him, which is completely fair. I believe I heard they want those first-round picks to change to third-round picks, and Or I believe they want all of it to change to third round picks or something to that effect. Basically, they want to lower the value of the picks if Deshaun Watson does end up going to jail or not being able to play a certain number, certain percentage of the season because of these allegations. Um, and Miami's already come out, or no. Yeah, Miami's already come out, and basically they're not going to pay what they want because they don't want to give them the security blanket that they also want. And the Texans are also holding firm on their stance that they're not going to trade Deshaun Watson for anything less than what they're asking for. So basically, Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, is not going anywhere this year. More than and actually, Texans have already said that if they have to keep him on their roster and waive him, or not waive him, but put him as I guess they would put him as a healthy scratch every week, unless he's claiming he's injured, then they're willing to do that. And I guess that would be Deshaun Watson's 2021-22 season in the NFL. While all this gets taken care of. There were also other teams. You had the Eagles and you had the Broncos who were interested, but they didn't have the capital like the Dolphins did. And, man, I think it's completely... When I saw this news, I thought to myself, one of my initial thoughts was, what about Tua? What are we doing with Tua in this situation? Because there's nothing in here that tells us what's happening to Tua Tagovailoa if Deshaun Watson gets traded to Miami. Does Tua go to Texas? Does Tua sit behind Deshaun? Does another team get Tua? There's really no clarity on that. It was just, what the Texans wanted for Deshaun Watson. In all honesty, I mean, I feel bad for Tua because I feel like he's kind of getting shit on a little bit because it sounds like the Miami fan base some of them would be excited for this trade. And just the way the media would want you to believe, or at least make it seem like, is that there's even a little bit of friction within the Dolphins around Tua and his development. And some players anonymously saying negative things about him. And it's just like, man, this guy's getting, I don't think I've ever heard Tua talk to the media. I'm a Seattle fan, and I haven't really paid attention to what Tua's got going on. But I'd love to know what he thinks about this whole situation. I mean, essentially, without anybody talking about it, they're kind of talking about his position in the NFL when they're talking about Deshaun going to Miami. And it kind of, if I was Tua, I'd be a little offended. Now, maybe he is, and maybe because of that, he's using that as ammo, because the Deshaun Miami trade has actually been talked about since, I want to say, midsummer or maybe even early summer. So that's given Tua enough time to think about this situation, and shit, maybe this next year we're going to see Tua throwing 50 bombs down the field and making some big plays because he's got to show these people, man. He was picked where he was picked for a reason. I feel like Tua this last season, when I watched him, I got the sense that he was being safe and careful with what he was doing. And I really hope this year he feels a bit more comfortable and is able to actually get out of the pocket, throw the ball a bit better, and not seem so scared of going deep. I think the last story I'll talk about today, because it's already almost 10, is the Cam Newton news. So this is actually, I didn't say this at the beginning of the episode, but this is August 31st. And today was the day when every team had to have their roster down to 53 individuals. And probably the most earth-shattering news this morning, pretty much, a couple hours after I woke up, was that Cam Newton got waived. So New England Patriots have decided that Mac Jones is ready, and that's who their starting quarterback is for this coming season. And that leaves Cam Newton out of the club. Now, Cam already put out a statement. It sounds like he's not upset about it. I think there's been a lot of people offering some good perspective on the situation with Cam Newton and what's going on with him and the Patriots organization. I think some of it's valid. I mean, some of the talk is about how, a player like Cam Newton, he's not going to want to sit behind or be a second string quarterback. He'll want to be the starter. And Cam is a captain. I mean, he's, as much as the media, I guess, would want you to believe that the guy is arrogant, egotistical, and I don't know. They almost make you want to seem like they almost want you to dislike him. I mean, when I watch Cam Newton play, I think he's an amazing football player. Prior, not considering the last few years, but I mean, when you watch him on Instagram, I guess, and you watch his interviews and you see him talk and stuff, the guy's smart. The guy seems like he works hard, and when you listen to his teammates talk about him, that's the same sense that you get from what they're saying. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna assume the guy's a hard worker, and he's very influential as a player to the people around him. So I think it was just a matter of, okay, we have a guy that we want to be all of those things in Mac Jones, and who probably is that. And then we would have another guy, and it's just kind of like you don't want to have two lions or too many chiefs in the whatever, too many chefs in the kitchen. There we go. That's the term I'm looking for. Because there can only be one head chef. So where does Cam go? Man, what teams signed a guy that may need to replace them? Damn, I know Pat McAfee was talking about it earlier, but I can't remember. The Texans, I believe it was. I mean, they do need a quarterback. But as far as other teams, man, I can't think of anything else. Because if Cam's going to be a starter on a team, I mean, maybe Washington football team. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think he still plays well enough to where they probably wouldn't replace him with Cam Newton. Yeah, I think Texans are probably the best place for him to go at this point. Unfortunately for the guy that they just signed to replace Watson for the season. But unless Cam's going to sit out this season, I guess Texans, we'll find out. We'll probably find out this week, maybe. But I guess I don't feel too bad for Cam. I do feel bad in the sense that he didn't have all of the Patriots' potential weapons that they could have been using. This year, they're going to have pretty much everybody back, and then the mass amount of money that the Patriots spent this last offseason on free agents and stuff. The Patriots loaded their team up with some good ass players. And I think Cam didn't get the fair opportunity, but he also did make a big mistake. He, didn't get vaccinated. I don't want to say he made a mistake by not getting vaccinated. I'm vaccinated, so it's whatever. I just think it's fucked up that he's getting so much backlash. It makes it seem like it's sounding like coaches are. It's not a unique situation for coaches and teams to be deciding if they're going to keep a person based on their vaccination status. So that's very possible, considering what happened with Cam Newton very recently, why the Patriots ended up cutting him. So, yeah. I mean, not much else I can say about that. So I think that's probably where I'm going to end this. I'll say it again. Follow me on Instagram at Behind Enemy Line Sports, and my Twitter is BrandM2012. You can also subscribe to me on YouTube at Behind Enemy Line Sports. There you'll find YouTube content along with the video versions of the podcast. And as far as my podcast is concerned, you can find it on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast, Amazon, and I think that's it. So I'll see y'all in the next one.